So we're going to call the meeting to order. We're going to do a roll call, please.
Brianna Breakfield.
Here.
Stacy Barker. Here. Scott Pratt.
Here.
Jimmy Littlefield.
Here.
Haley Darnell. Here.
Okay, we have 5 present, so declare this a forum. Number 2, we're going to discuss a possible action to approve the minutes of the March 18th special meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for the March 18th?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have to abstain.
I'll have to take a vote, yeah. Breakfield.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
And you'll have to abstain because you were not here.
Oh, okay. Then I
Pratt.
abstain.
Yes.
Littlefield.
Yes.
Darnell.
Yes.
So, public hearing. So I want to just tell you the way the process works before we get started. Before we enter the public hearing portion of the special meeting, I want to take a moment to explain the process of the meeting. During the public hearing portion of the special meeting, which we're getting ready to enter, we will first hear from the individuals who are in favor of the special exemption. Once those in favor of the exemption have spoken, those who are not in favor of special exemption will have the same opportunity to speak. For those requests to speak, we ask that you come to the microphone, state your name, and then present the statement that you wish the committee to hear. You will not have the committee will not ask you questions unless there's something they want you to clarify or they couldn't understand what you said. Once those who are for or against this special exemption have completed the statements, we will then exit the public hearing portion of the special meeting. Once we exit that meeting, then the meeting will transfer to the members and we will be able to ask questions. We'll talk amongst ourselves, ask questions if we need to ask somebody here for clarification. And at that time, once we get out of the public, then we're done with having anybody that's wanting to speak. It's that we go to the transition to the next part of the meeting. Everybody clear? Everybody good? So, do I have a recommendation to motion to enter a public meeting?
I'll make a motion to enter public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
You have to take a vote, yes.
Aye.
Go ahead.
All in favor say aye.
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 You can say aye this time.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. We're now in public hearing. The applicant Sarah Sherwood with Heartland Suites for owner and property Brett Fleek for a special exemption for the residential care facility. Lot 1 and 2 in Blocks 2 of the Colonial Estates addition to the town of Pryor Creek, Mays County, Oklahoma, according to the records plat thereof. First, we will hear from those in support of special exception. So, raise a hand for those who are in favor of this special. Okay. So we can go the 4 back there. We can just start from the right. Let's have Sarah come first. That'll work. If that works.
Hi, my name is Sarah Sherwood with Heartland Suites. I appreciate you guys all being here again today. I thought it would be appropriate. Am I talking too loud?
Sorry, we're trying to figure out the feedback, but I don't know how, I can't turn it down here.
Should I just keep going?
Yeah, just get back a little bit, maybe.
I wanted to start off today by addressing some of the concerns from last time, if you felt that was appropriate. Is that granted?
It's your platform.
Okay. Well, I know a couple of the concerns last time, we really appreciated the feedback because one of our goals is continuous improvement and quality of life. And that includes quality of life of our neighbors. So one of the concerns was that property values would go down. And our feelings in regards to that are that this home is incredibly hard to fit any single family. 8 bedrooms, 8 baths, all specifically made to accommodate those with elder care needs, including the handrails, the showers, and everything of that matter. So the layout is perfectly designed for that care. So with that being said, it did sit on the market for about a year and no one was able to purchase it, rather that be it didn't fit their needs or it just wasn't desirable for their family. With that being said, during the time a home is vacant, there's lots of bad things that can happen. Of course, you can have looters come in, you can have vandalizing, you can have lots of roaches that make their home, plumbing leaks, landscaping, all of those things that were left unmet. And so as you have a residential assisted living, keeping the home in tip-top condition is our strictest priority, and it's also a priority of the state that will oversee that. So I did just want to reiterate, by keeping the home in tip-top shape, not changing the structure, just cosmetically making it as beautiful as possible, will improve the home values. The next thing I wanted to address was the parking. I think that was probably the primary concern. And what I would like to say to that is that we hear that, we understand that, and it's always going to be a continuous improvement, and sometimes it might just take getting in there and really seeing what the concern could be. But none of our residents will be driving, they won't have a car. We have a 3-car garage and a 3-car driveway. There's also some space on the side, of course, not in front of the mailbox and behind the stop sign, because it is a 2-lot block. 2-lot space on the block. So with that being said, at the most we'll have 3 caregivers, and those 3 caregivers could park in the garage. Now I know the concerns were, what about holidays? And we mentioned that in most holidays, families come and pick up our residents to spend time with them. So they'll be out and there'll be less concern for the parking in that time. Another thing we had is, well, what about those fun events? And we love to celebrate everything. That's just something we value. So we understand that. So what I would say to that is we're working to implement a system, whether that be parking at, we've reached out to the church that's down the street, literally a block away, to see if we can utilize their parking, shuttle people in with a local shuttle, and we're also working on acquiring one. And if that means going a little bit further and shuttling farther in a larger parking lot, we're more than willing to able to do that, especially because it is such a close community. The Walmart is 6 minutes from us, and they have a very large parking lot, so there's lots of options. We can also look in our budget to expand different parking areas if that becomes a challenge.
So the church said, okay.
What was that?
You talked to somebody at the church and they said they're okay with?
No, we're working on that. They said they were gonna take a board vote, so they're in the
I see.
process of that,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Any other questions on those regards?
None at this time.
And then a couple other things I did want to share, where I did bring, I have it if you guys would like to look at them too. I can pass a couple things around. One is what the needs are in Pryor. Because the thing about senior living is, until it affects you, you don't think about it, and when it affects you, it hits you really hard, and it hits your whole family. And that was something I had a personal experience with. My grandparents ended up having to go to a nursing home, and so I know that it's one of the hardest things that a family can go through. And the fact of the matter is that the families are different now. A lot of the generation is having to care for their children. They can't care for the elderly as well. And so that leaves a big deficit. So, some of the stats in here, and I can pass this around, but it shows that Pryor is 1,045 beds short of meeting the level of care needed for our current seniors. And what that means is these seniors are gonna have to go elsewhere. So the people that have built the community, the foundations that we're standing, they're gonna have to go to Tulsa or other communities that have the need. But the challenge is that Oklahoma alone is 435,706 beds short for the current population. That means they're gonna have to go to out of state. So one of the things is, as we've kind of put feelers out to the community, we've already gotten calls from people saying they're having to drive to Tulsa to see their loved one, and unfortunately, that's so far they can't see them as often, and so they're looking for a place closer to home, closer to your community that you've built. So that's all I have at this time, but I'd be happy to address any questions.
We'll do that later.
So, let's step back here a little bit. My name is Melissa Thompson. I am a licensed nursing home administrator, and I have worked in senior living for 20 years. And I know Sarah. I actually went and visited with her when they were putting the position open for a part-time administrator for Heartland Suites. And my first impression when I went in and I walked around the house, and I thought, there's no way And as I thought about it that evening and I looked at what my current situation is that I have with experience that I've had in long-term care, experience I've had in assisted living and independent living, one thing I can tell you, having been in senior living for almost 20 years, is that if you find a place for your loved one to go to and they are taken care of and they are recognized by the people that are there, it is not because of the corporate, it is not because of the home office, it is because you have gotten lucky and you've received a caregiver who knows your mom's name, knows your dad's name, knows what your mom and dad like to eat for dinner, they know their habits, they know their plan of care, they know how to take care of them, they know that they like to have coffee at 11 o'clock at night and that they want to be up at 6 a.m. and they want to have an English muffin with no butter. If you get lucky and you find a caregiver that can give you that personalized care, then you stay there. And what I realized as I went through and I really prayed on Heartland Suites, because ultimately I'm like, there's no way. This is, you don't want to touch this, you know.
So you're gonna be the administrator?
I'm going to be the administrator. I am going to be the licensed administrator at Heartland Suites, absolutely.
Okay.
And I currently work full-time. I'm actually the accountant at JT Services, JT Septic in Claremore. I'm from Claremore. My husband's from Claremore. He works at GRDA. And being local and being in this area and seeing the need that we have for this actual type of business, that led me to really say, okay, this is something that we're going to go with. This, and I talked to a lot of people in networking and a lot of people in the state, being that we have to be licensed by the state of Oklahoma and we are under strict regulations to abide by those regulations. It's a little bit different than what you're seeing with residential care. It's not a drug rehab. It is not a halfway house. It is not a place where people are going to go. It's not a human kennel. It is a place that we are going to provide 8 senior citizens with the care, the dignity, the respect, and the small environment that they need to have that will be most beneficial to them. Because I can tell you, as an administrator of one of the largest and most prestigious senior living corporate entities in the United States, that there were many days that I don't know who the family is that came in, I don't know their mom's name, I don't know a thing about them, but they've talked to me 15 times and I recognize their face because I take their money or I did their contract with them, but I don't know nothing about them. I know nothing about them. And if there were more places like Heartland Suites and there were more private and independent senior living options available that are not just accessible, but are in the hometowns that don't have the reputation for being sketchy, I mean, this is the future of what senior living. There are doctors and investors and nursing home administrators and people that are coming out saying we deserve better for our seniors. We deserve more personalized care for our seniors, and that is what they're going to get there. It is not going to be some side operation investment. It's not a matter of how are you going to do this, because the how is already there, but why? Why are we doing this? It's not going to be a hand over fist moneymaker. It's not. But this is something that Sarah and her husband, they care about it. And she has a master's degree in social work. And the things that she has to say and the things that she has done and the effort that she has put into this place is amazing. And just in the past couple of weeks, the remodels and things they have done there, I mean, the landscapers they're having come in, they're tearing up the floors, they're putting stainless steel appliances in. I mean, they are upgrading this place to where it is some place that I would feel comfortable putting my mom. And that's something that this town needs, and that's something that we need even in this community, because I'm having to drive to Tulsa back and forth an hour just to work someplace that they just don't care. You know, they just don't care. And so, I mean, it's just, you know, if you can find someone that will take care of your family, like you can take care of your family, that's what these places are. And it's not, that's it. I mean, that's it. So, I don't know how else to say.
And what was your name again?
My name is Melissa.
And you're gonna be part-time?
Yeah, I'll be part-time in the beginning, and as we, of course, bring in, you know, our residents and get everyone situated, and, you know, yes, it will go into a full-time situation, but right now, we're getting things started, there's not really a need for full-time.
So obviously, the state requires a certain percentage of the
Correct.
time that you are there.
Yes, 20 hours a week.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Melissa.
you're welcome.
Yep. Next.
I'm Brandon Sherwood, Sarah's husband, and I kind of just wanted to go over some of the numbers that Sarah was talking about. And so, from census.gov, from July 2022, there was 9,566 residents in Pryor. 16.2% of those were age 65 and over. And so that's how we got 1,550 residents that are 65 and older in Pryor. And so it's estimated that 70% of people that are 65 and older will need some form of assistance in senior living in their time. And so that's how we got to it's 1,085 seniors just in this town that are expected to need some form of assistance. And so there's only one assisted living facility in Pryor and 2 nursing homes. Nursing homes are a lot higher level of care, and so with only one assisted living facility in Pryor, there's a big need in Pryor to keep these families in the community and not have to go to Tulsa. And one of our biggest things is the care for the residents. I watched my grandpa struggle hard when his mom was in a nursing home during COVID, and he was not able to visit her or see her in one of the big box nursing homes, with 100 residents, and he wasn't allowed to go see her, and I watched him struggle with that. So the level of care that we are going to provide is going to be top quality care.
Okay. Thank you, Brandon. Anyone else for? Okay. So, for those that are not for, if you'll raise your hands for me, so I can see where you're at. So we'll knock out these 2 over here, and then we'll come on this side over here. Can I come up first?
Me?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good afternoon, members of the Adjustment Board. I first would like to thank Mr. Scott Kraft for checking into the website of Sarah Sherwood. And to the other members, we appreciate your service. As I stated at the last meeting, I am just one of the residents of several who lives in Colonial Estates. It has always been a good neighborhood. Many of us have raised our children in this, quote, safe environment. Now, some of us have grandchildren who come to this safe environment or neighborhood to play and enjoy it. Should we have to change our safe and beautiful neighborhood? No. It was never meant to be commercialized. I also want to state that my mother was in this facility that we're talking about. She was in there for, I'm not sure, I think it was about 2 years. And she lived just, she would come through the alleys and be in my doorstep, to my misfortune. But anyway, that was between us. Was it a good facility at the time? Yes. It was treated as a home, and she was able to get good care there, and I appreciate it, and I haven't forgotten. Mrs. Fleek was in charge of it. But the problem is now, is this going to be a facility for health? How long? Is it going to be changed? If it's once changed, then it can be up for grabs. And we don't want that to happen. We do not need a commercialized area in our neighborhood. Pryor has a lot of properties that are available for this type of situation. And although I commend them for saying that we need some extra help for our senior citizens, me being one. But we do not need it to be changed in our neighborhood. We want our neighborhood to stay the same. Mr. Fleek could change his mind and sell it, and whoever got it, it could be commercialized. If it's commercialized, there goes our neighborhood, because it can be anything it wants to be. It's, the bad thing is, it's on 9th Street. This is a busy thoroughfare. It goes to the different schools, the children walk there. If it's commercialized, it will be bad, because we have the high school, we have the rec center, and a future football stadium. That's going to make it such a much busier street. We don't need that in Pryor. We're not a city. We've never planned to be a city. We want to be a hometown, our hometown. Let's not do something that will cause problems in the future. This property, Mrs. Sherwood has said that there would be full-time people there, but that's all well and good. But she's not going to be there to take over, or she said that they would have appointed people. But if she's in control, or whoever, they're hours away from us. And it being a mental, well, she had said at one time that it would be a mental facility.
It's gonna be a medical facility.
I'm sorry,
It's gonna be a medical facility.
An assisted living.
assisted
facility.
living.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
not gonna
but
be-
she had said earlier, I think at the last meeting, she had indicated it could be a mental thing.
Alzheimer, I think what she said is that, if it got to that level, then, these people would be set to go into a nursing facility or hospital, or maybe,
Yeah. But this is a neighborhood. This is a neighborhood, and as I said, we had no problem with the way it was run years ago. But different people do different things. We are not guaranteed
right,
that it's gonna be perfect. Nothing's guaranteed to be perfect. But, the thing is, we do not need to have this changed. It's important, and we lived all of our lives there. We're happy, and we do not need a zoning on 9th Street. Thank you, I appreciate it.
thank you.
I do want to clarify real quick that this is not going to be a business location. This is still going to be a private, with an exception for them to run the business from there. But it is not changing from a housing to a business. Just so everybody else knows that that's not what is up for question here. Okay, let's state that properly. Okay. Next person. Okay. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that the exemptions just for this time, but I remember last time you guys had investigated that, and there was a phone call made about the exemption stating that anything else could come in after as an exemption, that once the exemption is available, then somebody else with a similar type of business could come in through that exemption. Also wanted to point out, and just talk about some similar points. Hi, we missed you last time. How are you?
Thank you.
Talk about some similar points that were brought up last time from Ms. Sherwood herself about Heartland being the investor in this business, and how they have not invested in this type of business before. It's the first time, so there's no guarantee for success. Also would like to understand her involvement in the business itself. Is she going to be there on site continually? How's that going to work? I do agree that if Pryor does need a facility like this, that there will be a location somewhere available for it. Do I believe it's residential? No. Based on our previous concerns, such as the bus, she mentioned that they would have a shuttle, which, I mean, She's also mentioned just now that they could park that in another business somewhere, or the Walmart parking lot like she had mentioned. But it does seem like a great investment opportunity, which I believe she does agree, based on some information that one of our neighbors had found on her Facebook page, toting about the 70+ investments that she has going on. I just want to know her personal involvement. Is she going to be on site? What's she going to be doing there? Because personally, I have kids. The traffic thing's obviously a concern. You weren't here last time, but another big concern was the
Believe me,
rehab.
I watched the video.
Okay, yeah, so you know, the rehab and everything, that
Yeah.
was also a
I
concern,
do.
so, that's left a taste in our mouth of where we don't wanna do that.
Got it.
But also, this is a neighborhood,
Right,
and it's colonial estates. It was set up, it was titled and drafted that way as colonial estates, which we have that as well, we'll present to you as well. And, I just wanted to bring that to your attention, remind you of that, remind you of the website that was set up with, misleading information, which one of you guys had presented that it was misleading, and the reviews that were used for somebody else. We haven't got to talk to you guys about it. There's just some things that seems more like an investment opportunity than anything else, such as meeting one of you guys in the stairwells to discuss why you opposed it, things like that. I mean, I would try to protect my investment as well. And that just seems what's happening here. And you guys are meant to represent the people, and we've voiced what we think about it. I've got kids, this is my neighborhood, this is my family, and what, should I open a steakhouse in your neighborhood? Which, I mean, steakhouse would be great, right? But should I open something in your neighborhood that you disagree with? I just wanted to present those facts of the things that were presented from her previously. The investments, the websites, everything, the shuttle. It's just not an accommodating facility for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Anybody else? Yes.
I am not a public speaker. I'm very shy, so bear with me.
And who are you?
My name is Reagan Erdman. I'm Max's wife.
Okay.
Our daughter's sitting in the front row right there, so you can see that we are very protective of our area because of her. I am very grateful for today's meeting and getting another chance to be heard. I was a little shocked and disheartened at the split vote last time, and it felt a little disheartening to those of us that came out and spoke in majority against. You know, we are the ones that are directly affected by this vote. So it was very disheartening last time, to be completely honest. I don't really want to stand up here and talk about what it has been in the past. Obviously, Ms. Sherwood has stated that it's not going to be a rehab, not a mental health facility. She has nothing to do with how it's been ran in the past, so I want to just completely disregard all of that because that's not what we're here to talk about today. What we are here to talk about is what she does want to do, and it being a residential care facility. Obviously, you've heard that parking is an issue. I heard a lot of the things that she wants to do and that she's looking into, but I have not heard definite solutions. A couple of the solutions that she has thought about doing was parking across the street at the church. I find that hard to do with a family. It would be very hard and very concerning for me to take my daughter across 9th Street with how busy it is. So I don't see a family walking back and forth 9th Street. So if we are taking that shuttle across and parking it in the driveway, I don't know the last time you guys looked at a shuttle bus, but those things are quite large. And if you drive by and look at the house, the driveway would not fit a shuttle bus. So again, we're looking at parking it on 9th Colonial Drive. And again, it would just be out in the street, and again, they are large, and it's just not a solution to the parking. Something else I wanted to bring up that I found interesting was whenever I started doing a little digging on social media, I found some bragging about the 70+ other side gigs, which really made me nervous. You know, is this just another side gig? Is this just another investment opportunity that she wants to try and make money off of? I did appreciate Melissa being here today, showing a little bit more local, but we're still not local. You're still not from Pryor, you're still not here. The Sherwoods are from Norman, so that's a 3-hour drive. I don't see any investor making a 3-hour drive one way to ensure quality, and that's concerning to me. I want to make sure that the quality is there, and I don't know how that would be possible if you're 3 hours away. You know, lastly, this is a residential area. We have plenty of other commercial areas in Pryor, plenty of land to develop. My husband and I, myself, have tried to open a business in Pryor, and it was an escape room near the skating park, or skating rink. It didn't do well, but whenever we went into it, we went into lease to own, and as investors, we knew that that lease to own meant that we had an exit. We had a way out. And Ms. Sherwood is leasing to own, and that means she has a way out, she has an exit. And that scares me that, you know, if the commercial is for the building itself, does that commercial stick with the building?
It's not commercial.
Okay, the
It's an
exemption,
exception, it's an exception to the house.
okay.
So it's not going, it's not going to be business.
Okay, so it doesn't move on if she backs out of the lease to own?
It's still a private residence that has an exception under it, but that doesn't mean the exception can be removed upon them leaving. That would just have to be proposed and brought back here.
So we would have to bring it back here to propose to have the exception removed from the building?
Yes.
Okay, so it does kind of, it sticks with the building then?
Yes,
It's-
the
yes.
exception would stick with the building
Okay.
itself, but it is not a commercialized building, it is a residential home, and if it is, the vote goes in favor of, the home would become a residential home with an exception to the code.
Okay.
And it can be sold as a residence home still,
Okay,
or if somebody, if they did not change it back, then it could still be another residential facility, but it's still it's a private home.
okay. So even still, my concern would be with that exit plan, you know, it being leased to own. We have seen from the owners of the property, the actual, you know, title deeded owners, that unfortunately they just don't ensure quality of the property. And there's nothing to say that the next person that comes in and tries to run a residential care facility, you know, would run it poorly. And unfortunately, that exemption sticks with, if they decided to do that, they can do that, and then we have no say in it. You know, again, I just wanna come back to the fact that there is lots of property in Pryor. We do need it. I salute you for, you know, recognizing the need. We do need it in Pryor. I have a grandmother in a nursing home, and I really wish she would have had that option. But there's just so much commercial property in Pryor that can still be used, and so much land that can be developed. It doesn't need to happen in a residential area.
Thank you. Next person.
My name is Ken Fields. Not to make any assumptions, I would like to present a couple of documents here that I'll be referring to.
Good.
The documents that I'm presenting here is a owner certificate and dedication, or a covenant and restrictions clause. I think we're missing the point of the whole discussion here. It's not whether or not a medical facility is needed. Kudos for you for doing homework. It wasn't what is needed. But we can also know that our dentist tells us we don't floss enough. Doctors tell us we don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. We don't drink enough water. There's all kinds of problems that we have. The problem is not whether or not this is a proper use for the facility. The question is whether the facility should be changed from its current status to something else. What we have here is a plat of the Colonial Estates Edition, of which the property in question is a part. Those of us that are opposed to this are owners of some portion of the properties on that plat. In 1971, the developers of that addition saw fit to put some restrictions and some covenants on the property that they were going to be developing. The people, as you mentioned, that built Pryor. Some of the things that they wanted to do was to have a place for families exclusively. And so they put this covenant together to identify everything, every lot in this as being residential. further defined as being single-family dwellings, not to be more than 2 stories tall, et cetera, et cetera. This was enacted in 1971, with the original expiration date to be 1991, with an automatic renewal for 10-year periods after that. Ergo, this document should still be in effect. And it says that there will be no businesses, whether very professional. Let me refer you to item number 14. You almost need a magnifying glass. I'm sorry for the size of the print here. I had no control over that. It says no building or structure or any sort may be placed, erected, or used for church, business, professional, trade, or commercial processes on any lot or block in the Colonial Estates addition. Seems to me like that phrase right there identifies the fact that this should not be done. It also includes in here a statement that those persons, let me see if I can find it, if the parties here too, and parties, every person who bought one of the lots is given a copy of this and agrees to the content of these restrictions and covenants. And it says here that if the parties hereto at any time or their heirs or assigns shall violate or attempt to violate any of the covenants, conditions, and restrictions herein, it shall be lawful for any other person or persons owning any real property situated in said addition to prosecute by proceedings at law or in equity against the person or persons violating the same, either to prevent him from doing so or recover damages or other dues for such damages. There are approximately 30 lots here. The property in question covers 2 of them. That leaves 28 lots. 28 property owners. 28 property owners would be in line to enter into litigation against some individual or corporation for changes made and for the use of the facility that's in violation of these covenants. I'm not saying that they necessarily would, but they place themselves in a liable position to be for litigation. The question here about residential versus commercial, and if you clarified 2 or 3 times that this is a little different than what the assumption on some of us has been. But it still falls into the category here of a business or a profession. And I believe the medical profession is still considered a profession. Whether we're shaking gourds and waving feathers or whether we're actually dispensing medicines. The question is not so much what it is, it's what it could be. Now, it seems to me that the question is not whether or not we need the facility. We need the services that are provided there. The question is not whether or not this property is marketable the way it is. Yes, I can understand it'd be very difficult to find a family that's got 8 kids and needs 8 bathrooms. And even if you did, how are they going to sell it in the event that they're... However, that is not a problem of our construction. And we have the other property owners within this plat. Does it affect our property? Yes. whenever the formulation, the developer put this together, saying that we are going to restrict this to be single-family dwellings, it was a selling point. It is still a selling point. It is a selling point that we will lose if and when this property, a variance is allowed for this piece of property. It will affect each and every one of us that are in this plat. Some 28 different property owners. Is that good or is it bad? It's not a, like I said, it is not a, it's not a condition of our making. Whenever the property owner made his changes in the property, he took it upon himself to do that with no regard for what else was going on. I feel it would be unfair to place a burden of, well, kind of like the student loan, all right? You know, why are we paying for somebody else's student loan when they agreed to do it? He agreed that he would abide by the terms of this when he bought the property. Some changes were made without permission, without regard to the covenant. We ask that you vote against it.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor, can we find out if that is, how the process for that automatically being renewed? And if we find out for that covenant that they have a copy of?
Is Mr. Fleek the current owner of the property? He submitted a letter to this panel appointing Ms. Sherwood as his representative. I contend that this is also Mr. Fleek's request for the exception. I assume the panel has a copy of the letter of reference. If not, I have one. Mr. Kraft, you had brought up the concerns about the advertisement not being the sole reason, but it's a sign, and you're absolutely right. I looked at the website again today. They have updated it with additional and different false information. They're taking applications for a location that doesn't exist. They have videos of a location that doesn't even come close to representing Pryor. And then we have, due to the 3-car drive-in visitors, you have questions about the parking in the front. Ms. Sherwood's response was, I don't think that we have a designated area, and maybe contract with some other businesses. She continued today where she may be contracting, but there's nothing in place, nothing solid. Mr. Littlefield also stated, because you can see it's a major concern on the holidays, because if you have 8 residents staying there, and they have children and grandchildren and possibility of 50 to 60 people in the residence. Mrs. Sherwood's response was, and I quote, "And I will say, typically for the holidays, families want to bring the residents to their home. And we really encourage that. So I think that will help, but with celebrations, I'm excited about the shuttle bus." Where would a shuttle bus be parked for timely access? It has already been stated, they're large. The 9th Street access is not going to allow the parking per the city codes that I'll go into in a moment. Colonial Drive does not allow the width of the street to meet the ordinance for that to park there either. So I don't know that a shuttle bus, as large as they are, is going to fit in the driveway, so I don't know that that's a viable option no matter where they park it. Ms. Sherwood has never run this type of facility by her own admission. She does not have the experience to make a claim of what is typically done for the holidays. She's never done this before, so how would she know what is typically done for the holidays? This past weekend, we saw an example of the current parking solution with regard to parking. And I have a picture of that I can either share or provide to you. It's my first exhibit. It shows them parking on the street on Colonial, but pulling up in the yard because there wasn't clearance for cars to get by with the truck that they had. So their first picture, I've got the picture in my packet. I'll provide it to you at the end. But that was parking on March 24th. And the facility is not even open yet, and they're parking in the yard.
That was me. I did it on purpose. The black Chevy Silverado, that's me.
I don't care why you did it. The fact of the matter is you did it.
I did. Absolutely.
I would also like to share from the Pryor Creek, Oklahoma City of Ordinance as it relates to the parking issues addressed. Chapter 7, parking prohibited at intersections. The parking of vehicles at the curb where streets intersect shall be prohibited 15 feet in advance of the crosswalk on the near side of such intersection. Section 6(7)-15, parking in alleys and blocking driveways. No person shall park a vehicle within a street or alley in such a manner or under such conditions as to leave available less than 20 feet of the width of the roadway for the free movement of the width of the roadway or for the free movement of vehicular traffic. No person shall stop, stand, or park a vehicle within a street or alley in such a position as to block a driveway entrance to an abutting property. It is my contention that those requirements as stated in the city ordinance limits this location to only the 3-car driveway for legal parking in this facility. Also, concerns raised by Mr. Kraft regarding the advertisement. While the website's been updated, as I stated, it's still incorrect information. The section that I want to point out is under their Our Values section of their website. It currently lists and states under number 5, transparency and integrity in bold, what it means. We believe in being open, honest, and ethical in all of our interactions, whether it's with our residents, their families, or our staff. How we uphold it through transparent communication, ethical practices, and a commitment to doing what's right. We earn and maintain the trust of all who engage with Heartland Suites. I'm not sure that's true with what they're advertising. The next thing I want to address is Ms. Sherwood's claims and assertions during the 3/18/24 meeting. She made several claims throughout her time. One was the stating her position as an employee of the state of Oklahoma. I drank like 3 bottles of water today, but it's not helping. Okay, Ms. Sherwood stated her position as an employee of the state of Oklahoma. First, one of her first statements was that, quote, I am also a mental health therapist and I work for the state. Second, after Ms. Brakefield asked, and I quote again, you mentioned that you are a mental health professional. Where are you currently working? And ended with, and is that part of this facility? Her response was that it's not. So I currently work for the state. I work as it's called a Quentin Wood specialist. And so I can consult on cases of child abuse that come in with anyone with a perceived and diagnosed disability to make sure that they are checking for safety. I also work at transitions and trauma as abuse counselor. I work with families and children, and that's something we make sure we have for our staff to make sure they have their mental health needs met, and goes on from there. Third, at about the 30-minute, 49-second mark, she acknowledges being aware of the potential conflict, but still utilized her role with the state to further her agenda regarding this matter. She continues to allude to her position throughout her statements on several other occasions as support for her credentials as owner of Heartland Suites and in support of the claims, statistics, and supposed impacts of laws pertaining to a residential care facility. It is my contention in doing so she has violated the policies governing state employees, specifically Oklahoma Administrative Code OAC 342-1-8A. The policy clearly states employees' ethics and other employment. There's a prohibition against use of position for personal gain and avoidance of conflict of interest. Also, in addition, 340 Section 2(1-8)(a)(3). It is vitally important that an OKDHS employee avoid actual and perceived conflicts of interest in activities such as employment with a provider who contracts with OKDHS, the employment or other activities of a spouse or other family member may create the appearance of a conflict of interest and cause members of the general public to question OKDHS decision-making. I assure you this does for me. 342-1-8A4. An OKDHS employee may not be employed by another state agency or any provider contracting with OKDHS without prior written approval of the employee's division director.
So I know we're not supposed to really interact in this portion of it, but I didn't quite catch the statutes here.
It's Oklahoma Administrative Code,
Okay.
OAC 340.
340, what's the rest of the?
2-18A, 2-18A, Section 3, and Section 4. A complaint has been filed with the state to specifically address that matter with the state, but for the purposes of this panel, it's my belief that any and all credibility afforded to Ms. Sherwood based on her position and duties with the state should be wholly disregarded. Responses during the second piece I want to address are responses regarding the lease she claims is in place. Beginning with, she stated the lease with an option to contract, deeds working to transfer. I think we've already covered the fact that that hasn't helped. That's not a solid, complete, finished contract, first of all. Secondly, does that lease actually exist? I don't know. And then she follows up with, well, we actually did a lease to own, so it's basically creative financing because the property is expensive. The words creative financing caused me a great deal of concern. She's taking many, many liberties with wording, using key phrases and key words to make her points and make it sound good, using all the right jargon, but it's all creative, none of it's factual. She also then states the phrase creative financing and then stating they're helping bring someone out of a tough situation causes me concern. I would, like I said, would like to know the terms of the lease. What are the out clauses? She's selling or offering on her website 12-month contracts, but during her statement, she said she was looking to the end of the year. Last time I checked, that's 7-8 months, because they're not open yet. All leases come with clauses, as I stated, so I'd be, again, interested to see what hers are. And in response to Ms. Breakfield's question of Ms. Sherwood's current job and how it will tie in, she detailed her current position and acknowledged a possible conflict, but gave vague assurances with regards to the question, but provided no details nor proof her assertions are accurate, stating, I don't think it's ethical to combine, I don't think it's ethical to combine the two, and so that's why I've actually found our administrator. And they stated they'd like to hire with 20 years experience. I understand that's Melissa that's here this evening. And then she ends with, so we will have a big power team in there to support the people in there. It's another one of the key phrases in the healthcare facility, and all of that is a power team. Well, I want to know the specifics of that power team. I can say power team all day long, but just like she's claiming to have one, I can say she's not. Who's correct? We don't know. The other item I want to state is with I don't know if Melissa said she was being hired or not, but I'm interested to know how Ms. Sherwood has the authority to quote regulations, and will she follow them as she did in using her position with the state to further her agenda? What local doctor has she partnered with? She mentioned a local doctor, a dietitian, an RN. All of these people have to park somewhere if these people aren't mobile, or they have to use the shuttle bus. That just adds layer upon layer upon layer. In response to Ms. Breakfield's question, what is the staff to client ratio? Ms. Sherwood's response was, so we are waiting on the architect of how many we can be licensed for, and goes on from there. Basically stating at the end that, in her quote was, we would have a maximum of 12 residents, and it depends on their level of care needs. So if you've signed a lease with an option to own, have found your administrator that you want to hire, and are prepared to have a big power team, all of which she referred to, what or who is the architect that she's waiting on, and how is she able to tout a big power team when, according to her own statements, absolutely no details are finalized or provided throughout her remarks. Also, in responding to Ms. Breakfield's question of concerns about sober living, Ms. Breakfield asks lots of discussion over the concern of it becoming a family living, a sober living. Is there anything in the works for that being a backup plan, or is that even been a discussion? She advised absolutely not. It's absolutely not. It's not, the backup plan is not a plan. It doesn't fit with what we think would be best for the property. And I will say we saw the damage in the house, and I want to highlight the part where she says she has family that runs sober living homes. So she does have some association with that. It's not completely foreign to her. She also, again, references the fact that she works with that population. All I can give you is my word. And again, if all she has to give us is her word, she's not showing to be accurate in what she's providing with her words. That causes me some concern. She also states that the sober living is not our expertise. And so, if the sober living is not her expertise, she then goes on in the next bullet point I want to mention. She stated that she went to a residential assisted living academy and would just have a power team that specializes in this position, that she can only provide her word. However, she does have family, as I stated, sorry about that. In our research, we were able to locate through the social media postings that she attended a 3-day course, capital RALA, and completed it in January of this year from what we can see online. I have a picture of what we found on her Instagram page, that it was a 3-day fast-track course, Residential Assisted Living Academy. Shows her picture as celebrating completing the 3-day course. with a picture she posted January 28th, 2024. That also is included in my packet. It is my contention that a 3-day course does not make this residential assisted living her area of expertise either. If she, and as Mr. Fleek's representative, then, if exception approved, add a stipulation to the exception that it's only for Ms. Sherwood and is restricted to only a senior living center with a specific exclusion regarding sober living or a halfway house, and she stated she is giving her word to this panel. Adding a restriction to the exception shouldn't have been a problem. Next item is Ms. Sherwood at the beginning of her statement shared a quote from her phone quoting statistics in 2030. All boomers over 65, 1 in 5 in U.S. retirement age. We don't have the available beds. She reiterated some of that today. It is unclear to me how a facility of 8 rooms with a maximum capacity of, as she stated, 12 would fill anything related to the need that she quoted today, or that her husband did. Pryor currently has Colonial Terrace Care Center, Shady Rest, and in the local areas there's Avondale Cottage, Ventura Village, a subsidized elderly apartment facility, 54 units behind the fire station, also down the road on 9th Street. Home health agencies operating to assist elderly with staying in their home. I cared for my mother in my home until 2016 when she passed. Did so for about 5 years. That was my preference. Putting my mother in a home never crossed my mind. So we have Carter Home Health, we have BioLife, we have Angels Care, Complete Oklahoma, and Alliance Home Health. We have many resources functioning that can support the needs of Pryor. We also have in Shoto, Meadowbrook Nursing, and Park Hill Nursing. Park Hill Nursing has 65 residents or units. And then there's also a facility to be built, or that has been built, a half-mile east of this location, out past the high school, that this board here approved for zoning on 8/4/22 for the building of 69 units of assisted living and 16 units of independent living in a residential zone, per the minutes of this board. That's at address 1085 Southeast 9th Street for owner Terry L. Davis. And then I believe that was also the date that Ms. Brakefield was given the oath for this panel, so I believe you should recall that. But it's part of the minutes if she doesn't. The last location addressed by this panel should be memorable, as I stated, and it is my contention that the needs of Pryor are being met and will continue to be without the use of the location in question. It is also my contention that with the current setup as claimed by Ms. Sherwood, being a lease to own with nothing in place, that the failure rate of this startup is too high to warrant the risk to the city. Per the latest data that I located, startup failure rate statistics in 2024 is that the startup failures are up to 90% of startups fail. Across almost all industries, the average failure rate for 1 year is 10%. In 2 to 5, it's 70%. And in the long run, it's 90%. First-time startup founders have a success rate of only 18%. Healthcare providers, restaurants, manufacturing companies are among the most expensive startup companies and usually require more than $100,000 to launch. If the exception stays with the House and this exception is granted without any limitations, as is permissible by the app, who is to say if this venture fails and per stats and has been stated by some other residents, and no lack of concrete plans, that Mr. Fleek will not revert to a halfway house as he did in the past, with no protection remaining to the area residents or the city of Pryor for law enforcement needs. At the 38-minute 50 mark, Ms. Brakefield asked, so is Heartland, the agency that you're contracting with, is that who's going to run this? What's the connection there? So so Heartland Suites is basically doing business as company Turbo Property Solutions. I'm not understanding the connection. So Ms. Brakefield also asks, do they have any other facilities in the area? Ms. Sherwood states this is the first one for Heartland Suite It just follows the same model as some others. Ms. Brakefield follows up with, is Heartland Suites owned by another agency or another individual that does in fact have other residential suites, or is this the first time attempting this? Her response was that this will be our first residential home, and we are the sole owners of that. We do have another investor, and she's also a lifetime therapist that lives in Idaho. And so she has similar homes that serve the population, but she's not a part of this company. Just as a good sounding board. So if Heartland Suites is basically doing business, and those basically was her words, not mine, is basically doing business as the company Turbo Property, but they're the sole owners, I am very confused on the connection there. It is my contention that this is creative positioning with regards to ownership and intended use of the location, just as Ms. Sherwood has advised that they are utilizing creative financing because the property is expensive to initiate this startup. The last point I want to make with regards to the previous meeting and statements made is that she claims, are her claims regarding the Fair Housing Act, both in her statements to this panel and provided in her application. Ms. Brakefield stated, and I'm going to kind of redirect just a little bit, have you already started the process seeking licensure? Her response was, yes, we have. Ms. Brakefield followed up with, has there been a discussion on what the potential outcome of that are? You just like waiting on this, or are you already in the pre-stages of approval? Like, what does that look like? She said, this is one of the things we are waiting on. I will say it's really challenging. We wanted to go through the city because we want the support of the city, but it falls under the Fair Housing Act and the Fair Housing Act, and so that's a route we didn't want to have to go because we want to be sure we are hearing all the concerns of the community. In the application she's written by Ms. Sherwood, there was some before, but it ended with residential assisted living provides a safe space for populations aged 55 and up who are unable to care for themselves and rely on caregivers, making them a protected and vulnerable population under the Fair Housing Act. It's my contention that age population is in fact not listed as a protected class as claimed by Ms. Sherwood. The actual laws, from what I have printed out and after consulting with an attorney, it states that the Fair Housing Act protects people from discrimination when they are renting or buying a home, getting a mortgage, seeking housing assistance, or engaging in other housing-related activities. And those apply to federally assisted housing. Who is protected? It prohibits discrimination in housing because of race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, and disability. The familial status is in relation to an existing nursing facility not being required to adhere to allow kids to live in the home. That's the only protection that's provided to the aged. Of what is stated, and again, having consulted an attorney, is that it does not apply to this situation. The Fair Housing Act protects those who may be subject to discrimination due to the items that I listed. Then it states who enforces the Fair Housing Act. Federal, state, and local jurisdictions protect those who believe they have been discriminated against by landlords or sellers. It is my contention that Ms. Sherwood incorrectly stated the law to bolster her claims and causes her word, which as she stated is all she has, to be in question on multiple fronts, and by association Mr. Fleeks as well as the purpose of their intentions. That is the end of what I wanted to address regarding the last meeting, but I have some other items I want to address as well that came to the forefront for me in watching the video multiple times. I hope you all can hear me because it doesn't sound good on my end. After watching the recording and the meeting several times, These items also came to my attention. First, the multiple calls to the city attorney regarding the procedural details required, and the panel members being unaware of the requirements regarding what they are tasked with and what the responsibilities are. Second, the last question I could hear by a resident, and I'm sorry, I don't know who you are or what your name is, but they asked you as to how this came about regarding the request for exception, or if there was one in the past. She stated that has not been an exception. She thought he had it, but we searched and searched and couldn't find one. And so finally at the 20-minute mark, quite interesting to me was right at the 20-minute mark. I watched the video several times. Throughout that entire meeting, Ms. Breakfield's expression was the same as it is right now, except for about a 2 to 3 second smile and nod to Ms. Sherwood as she came to the podium. This caused me a great deal of concern that there may be a relationship between Ms. Breakfield and Ms. Sherwood. These concerns led me to do additional research for myself and not simply trust the legal process and that this panel was going to be fair. So is there a possible conflict of interest regarding the request before this panel and the parties in power to determine its approval? First, I wasn't aware that Chase McBride was or is the city attorney until I went to looking for that. I tend to like to stay on my corner that I've been on for 45 years and mind my own business. For me, why is that a problem? I will attempt to lay that out for you. So let me first give you a bit of insight as to who I am in relation to the information I'm going to provide. I've lived in the town since 1978. My father was born in 1939 in Pryor and raised here. He left to join the Air Force and was gone long enough to serve our country and retire with full honors. We came back here when I was in the 4th grade. My parents bought the coffee shop that was on Main Street. That business was in my family for almost 30 years. My grandmother had it for 10 years before my parents. My parents had 2 kids, myself and Clint. Brett Fleek's parents, Tom and Diana, they own Fleek Construction, which has been in business for many years and it is now owned by Brett Fleek. Tom and Diana had 3 sons, Brandy, Brian, and Brett. Chase McBride's father, Terry McBride, was a prominent attorney in this town for years before becoming a sitting judge. Terry also has another son, Jeff McBride. Why does any of this matter? Our families were all well acquainted throughout the 70s and 80s, and I'm quite certain, with the obvious exception of those that have passed, and those like myself that have chosen a quiet, private life still are. For anybody questioning my memory, I brought my copy of the 1986 yearbook showing Jeff McBride, Brandy Fleek, Brian Fleek, Clint Jackson, and myself, as well as Christy Bristow that's here today as well. And we have, all of us are now part of the All Reunion class as well. Brian, Jeff, and Clint were on the football team together in 1986. That's Brian Fleek, Jeff McBride, and Clint Jackson. I don't have verification for 87 and 88, but you can look those up online as well. It was Brett that graduated in 1990, because he was 2 years behind me. When I was a senior, he was a sophomore. Brett Fleek and Chase McBride were younger brothers. All 3 sets of parents were prominent business owners and very well acquainted. But I believe I've made my point regarding the family ties. The next concerning tie for me was that Brianna Breakfield works for Ritchie Rock and Atwood. It was formerly Ritchie Rock McBride and Atwood before Chase McBride became city attorney and before he branched off with his own on McBride and McBride. That was approximately the same time, I believe, as she became part of this panel. And I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Breakfield, I believe that you passed the bar in 2021. You were admitted to the bar in April of 2021 and then worked directly with Mr. McBride at Ritchie Rock McBride and Atwood as your first job as a licensed attorney. With Ms. Darnell, Mr. Littlefield, and Ms. Barker taking the oath to join this panel on November 30th, 2023. Mr. Kraft doing so sometime in the preceding year, according to the term and date listed on the site, and Mr. Doyle's recent win for the position over Larry Lee's. I felt it necessary to point this out specifically, as for me, at a minimum, this change shows a direct tie between the party actually requesting this exception, the factual beneficiary, if it is granted, being Brett Fleek, and the city attorney, Chase McBride, and the panel, specifically Ms. Brakefield, as it relates to the issue at hand, certainly leaving me to perceive a possible conflict of interest. Bare minimum, the optics aren't good. At its worst, it could be an indication of much worse collusion, for example, against the residents of the city of Pryor Creek. As a citizen of this town and a resident that will be directly impacted by the ultimate decision of this panel, I most certainly hope it is not the latter. Now I want to also address the history of the property. I appreciate Ken and his wife bringing the paperwork to look at as well. But I also did some searching in the land records. I've got a little bit of the details in the packet I'll provide you as well. The locations are Colonial Estates Block 2, Lot 1 and 2. Michelle and Jeff, and I forgot their last name, they own lots 3 and 4 now. Ms. Sherwood stated the home is a residential home that has been used for decades as a residential care facility. I hesitate to call it a lie, but the facility has not also preceded in death by Mr. Fleek in 2008. And the reason that matters is in the hardship portion of the application. Ms. Sherwood states that the request is due to all hardships applying, and that the house is too large for a single family, and so forth, like she did today. The brief summary of the ownership: that 3 and 4 is now owned by Jeff and Michelle. The house at 901 Colonial Drive, as Ken stated, was built in 1971 as a single residence. From the time I moved here in 1978, the adjacent lots that Michelle lives on, lots 3 and 4, was empty. Kendall and Carrie Southern were the owners prior to the sale to Diana Fleek in 1999. She purchased it in May 20th, 1999. I would presume that that's around the time the residential facility was put in. It's also around the time my father passed, and for my memory, it sounds about right, but I don't have verification of that. Ms. Fleek then added Brett to the property in December of 2004. Mr. Fleek then sold lots 3 and 4 to Anthony Rainwater on February 20th, 2008. Mr. Rainwater then built the home in 2021 that Jeff and Michelle subsequently purchased in June of 2021. Again, I have a copy of those land records in the paperwork I'll provide you. It is my contention that the hardships claimed are a result of Mr. Fleek's and his mother's renovating a house to those needs, and in not having addressed the zoning issues and need for parking while they had the ownership of the adjacent lots to add a parking facility. The facility was operated as a care facility for 10 to 12 years illegally, not the decades that were claimed. It is not now the residents of the community nor the city's burden to assist Mr. Fleek and Ms. Sherwood in shouldering the hardships of their current desires. If Mr. Fleek's desire is now to sell this property for use according to the current zoning requirements, there is no one better suited to do so than someone that owns a construction company, as Mr. Fleek does. And just for the matter of record, Brandon Arms owns a construction business. He'll be happy to assist with renovating it back to the way it goes. I also want to address the application as it relates to the criteria required in order to grant an exception. As 3 members took oath on November 30th of 2023 from this panel, I wasn't sure if the full panel may or may not be aware of the exceptions code, nor the criteria stated in section 10-15-12, the special exceptions portion of the city code. I want to spell that out here. First, the handling of the previous meeting and the resulting outcome are a bit questionable per what is stated in the city code. The panel was advised the exception was advised by the city attorney that the exception would stay with the building, but did not address the option to impose restrictions, conditions, or limits on any exception as stated clearly in the application. 2, also the options provided by the city attorney in the event of a tie are not listed as such, forwarding the city council or reconvening with 5 members. Application page 2 states on the second to the last sentence, I believe, in granting any special exception, the board may make appropriate conditions or safeguards, may limit the approval to a specified period of time, and may require a bond or other guarantee necessary to enforce compliance with those conditions. So if there's any possibility of a yes vote this evening, it is my request, strong request, that many restrictions be placed on this property. The next item is section 10-15-12, F1 and 2 of the city code. It states, under hearing and final decision, the Board of Adjustments must hold a public hearing on the special exception foundation. Following the close of the public hearing, the Board of Adjustments must act to approve the proposed exception, the special exception. Approval of a special exception requires an affirmative vote of at least 3 members of the Board of Adjustments. In approving a special exception, the Board of Adjustments is authorized to impose such conditions and restrictions as the Board of Adjustments determines to be necessary to ensure compliance with the standards of section G of this section to reduce the minimize the effects of the special exception upon other properties and to better carry out the general purpose and intent of this UDO. The second item I want to point out, per 10-15-12, the requirements to grant variance were not met in all areas, but specifically the hardship is self-imposed. It states under H1, no variance may be approved unless the Board of Adjustments determines that the following facts favorable to the property owner have been established. There's a couple of items regarding the surrounding shape, such and such, but the primary key point for me was D, that the alleged practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship was not created or self-imposed by the current property owner. And under F, that the variance to be granted will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood in which the subject property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair use or development of adjacent property. It's my contention it certainly would. Also on section G, that the variance to be granted will not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purposes, spirit, and intent of this UDO or the comprehensive plan. Third, per the stating listing on the application on page 2, it states further, if the exception is for special residential facility, the following factors shall, and it is my understanding, Ms. Breakfield, shall does not allow discretion. You're better able to answer that, but according to the attorney that I consulted with, shall does not allow discretion. It says the following factors shall be considered, and to please be ready to address each of these items at the hearing. The size of the facility, the number of staff to client ratio, the levels of treatment. D is location of site in relation to needed services. E is city infrastructure in the area. F is compliance with state licensure and certification requirements. G is proximity to similar uses. H is distance from sensitive uses, single-family residential districts, schools, parks, child daycare centers, and so forth. As I stated before, there was daycare Curtain Climbers 0.6 miles away. Jefferson is 0.2. Lincoln Elementary is 0.8. Pryor High School is 0.6. Pryor Junior High is 1 mile. Thunderbird Youth Academy 0.6 miles. Centennial Park 0.9 miles. Whitaker Park 0.9 miles. And just for added verification, we also have a fire station and a helipad 0.2 miles away. It is my contention that the previous meeting, failing to reach the required 3-member vote, should have resulted in declining the exception, or the previous meeting should not have occurred without the full panel present. Also, the hardship in place is the result of the owner's own doing, and the owner and his representative have failed to address all items as required on the application, and they were not able to provide specifics of any kind that would be considered as addressing those concerns in any way that is not injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to the public welfare. My final point is to address the criteria required in order to grant a special exception. And that is section 1015-12G, the approval criteria. A special exception may be approved only if the Board of Adjustment makes each of the that the special exception will be in harmony with the The only righteous decision today is to reject their request for the proposed exception. And under the UDO, i.e. the city code, the approval criteria in my mind is clearly listed, and I don't believe that burden has been met based on the points I have raised as well as other residents. We feel so strongly that a group of us have already spoken. To be yes, because that it would be a burden on us. We have sought the advice of an attorney, and with the burden not being met, should this panel approve the decision, we will be filing an appeal via the district court, as is required by the city code. That is a cost of doing so, and the time it will take is just the first burden of a decision to grant the exception that you'll have on this panel will have on the residents. I appreciate the time that you've afforded me today. I'll await the decision of this panel. I'll provide you all with my copies. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
No, thank you.
you.
Just want to let you know the mics are going in and out, that as I get notified, I'll turn it off and back on as quick as I can so that we're not losing anything.
Okay. It's only if you're for, or if you're against the proposal at this time.
Okay. That's very one-sided, but these people talk about community and families and they're worried about their kids, but who got together to go clean that house up? Nobody put forth any effort to go clean that house. They could go clean up that area. That's their neighborhood. Why don't they go in for it together? 28 people. They could go in and buy that place. What, 13,000 each? Why didn't it clean it up?
point of order.
Come to the front.
I've been sitting here and I've just listened to a lot of people make up lies saying it's going to be a.
Come up to the front, please.
share your feelings.
This isn't my business, okay? This isn't my business here. I hear a lot of people, I have property. If somebody buys the property next to mine, I don't go get in their business and consult lawyers and tell them what they can and can't do. If I don't buy that property, that's their property. I mean, this is the United States. I did serve, I'm not gonna give you my whole history, but I did serve in the United States Air Force. I'm a veteran of a war, and nothing, a lot of this, what they have said, meant nothing. It's all a bunch of accusations, and they're afraid for their children. These are old people that want to put it in there that they want to take care of. And the only reason I'm here is because Melissa is my wife, and she is going to go over there, put her license on the wall to take care of these people, because she believes in it. I don't understand people coming up and saying all these things, but they don't have the time to go clean up the property. It's run down because she's remodeling things. She's cleaning it up.
We don't know what the inside looks like.
She has contractors on the way. They're Facebook stalking her, but they have contractors coming in, landscapers, to do it.
I think once you come in, we would love to invite all of you
Please.
to see it.
That's what they're there for. They're gonna
doing that. We plan on doing that.
do that.
We need to get, we need
I
to
think
get
that we
this.
need to take it, we all need to finish this, this meeting so that we can make our points.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not appropriate behavior. We need to get ourselves back together. Emotions are hot. Let's take a 5-minute recess.
Scott, if you're okay with that? Yes. 5-minute recess. Okay. So go ahead. So we're gonna continue with those who are not for the recommendation.
Hello, my name is Wanda Cummings, and I have been in real estate for 20-plus years. I've been to a few closings and kind of understand a little bit. Marilyn will tell you that we've pulled a lot of plats in my day. Plats are always time-specific, but they also include covenants and restrictions that are time-specific. You see, many plats will tell you that that plat runs for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. It has the option of falling away, but if the owners within a subdivision decide they want to keep those and it clearly states that it will automatically renew every 10 years. There's no option.
importance of what this exemption could actually mean. You know, and it's nothing against a residential facility. I'm all for that in the right place. But that exemption, staying with that property, opens the door for so many more issues. Not to mention the problems with the residential facility as well. The parking, we've talked about it to death. They say 3 personnel. What about the, gotta refer to my notes here. Physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, medicine delivery people. On their ad, they say they're gonna have HelloFresh brought in. What about deliveries of supplies? All that has to have parking, a place to drop off, pickup of the trash. I mean, that all is a problem on that street. That's big concern for us that live close. The citizens, we've brought to you guys a lot of facts and information. We've dug deep to show you our concerns for this. Again, it is nothing against Ms. Sherwood and what she's trying to do. It's our concerns for our community and our neighborhood. She came in here with many ideas, great ideas, but she doesn't have a plan. She has ideas. I can't walk into a bank and propose a business loan without a business plan. They're not gonna give me a loan. They're gonna look at me and say, you haven't figured this out yet, go. That's the same as this. It's a lot of ideas, but there's no plan. You guys have asked her questions at the last meeting, and she's, I like that idea. That's a good idea. We'll think about that. She's been misleading on her website, and other social media as well. She's advertised this place is already being open. She doesn't live in our town. She does not pay taxes in our town. She does not vote in our town. How does she know what needs to be done here? She has many side hustles, as she's referred to them herself on her social media. None of them are brick and mortar facilities. So how do we know she even knows how to run a brick and mortar front? She sells t-shirts on a website. She runs a website developing company. She does design for mental health, interior design, as well as her regular job. She also sells stuff on Amazon. She's got a lot of irons in the fire. How can a residential facility be a priority for her? I mean, this is great detail. She's talking about the care to older people that is so important to us, but it's not her top priority. She's got so many others. And she spouts numbers about the need for this, but how is an 8-bed facility really going to change that? Really, that's just gonna cause more headaches for the community than it is solving a problem. So I ask you guys to please not pass this exemption because it is not worth the headaches or the detriment to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else against? Okay. If there are no more individuals who would like to speak for or against the special exemption, I need a motion to exit the public hearing.
I'll make the motion to exit public hearing.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Number 4, discussion and possible action on public hearing for Sarah Sherwood and Heartland Suites for owner and property Brett Fleek for special exception for the residential care facility.
Take a motion to discuss.
Need a motion to discuss?
I'll make the motion to discuss.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You don't have to do that yet, you can just go ahead and discuss.
We can discuss. You have anything? Who wants to be first?
So are they voting again, or is it just me?
No, it will be the whole board again.
What do you have to say? What about the stuff you brought?
Is that okay? Sarah, can you come up? So let's address with, we have a list.
Yeah.
Let's address the parking.
Yeah.
So, are residents going to be allowed to have a privately owned vehicle?
No. I mean, they can have them, but they're not allowed to park them at our facilities, so they have them at their children's house.
Okay. So, at that point, any appointments that, for the doctors, Walmart trips, anything else is going to be provided by your facility?
We're working on creating a shuttle system, but families are also responsible for taking their parents to appointments and things like that.
No, but they're not allowed to have a vehicle.
Correct. So we'll have a vehicle that takes them to do all of the town things. If you're talking about every single medical appointment, because sometimes there can be 5 a week, we'll work that out with the family with what their continuum of care is. I can see where we could have a concern with somebody wanting to have a vehicle if they're able to drive and have a driver's license and have to get to an appointment. But you would place a restriction that they could not have a privately owned vehicle on site. And I will say that with this level of care, typically they don't have their license anymore. It starts to get unsafe for them to drive. So that's a pretty strong feeling. Once you reach this level of care, you're typically not able to drive.
But this is a place where a person needs assistance doing something, but they can still manage for most of their things, right?
So what was the last part you said?
So they can manage most of their things. So you're saying that the one thing that they could not do is drive?
Yeah.
Okay. How often were you planning to be on site?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I want to address a couple things. Feel free to cut me off if you feel like it's not leading to this specifically. So, I've worked in child abuse and neglect for a long time, and I'd worked child deaths. That was one of my specialties. And let me just tell you that you don't know how bad an abuse and neglect gets for children typically until you have something as severe as a child death happen, and that's when you start to have action. Now, when we look at the elder population, when we have people that pass away, it's not as alarming because we're expecting that. And so the systems that we have set in place to monitor this, it's random site visits, it's hiring the administrator, which you just met with 20 years of experience, it's having specific caregiver staff. We are gonna have cameras in the facility. That's, part of one of the requirements too with state law. And so when having someone randomly pop in to make sure all of these things are going it's so critical. And when you have someone that lives at a facility full time, you're actually having a higher chance of abuse and neglect because of that, and it is a vulnerable population. So we're definitely going to be doing monthly visits, and then we'll be having lots of unscheduled times as well.
Okay. So let's go to your media.
Yes, absolutely.
So we discussed your website last week,
Mm-hmm.
and you asked me for recommendations. And I said, first of all, take down any people that talked how great it was or commented when it wasn't open. And then the second piece of advice was to go through and make sure that everything that's on the website is what you're offering and what we're doing, okay? So I went through today and talked about, last week we talked about medication management.
Mm-hmm.
And you had stated that you guys were not going to be involved in medication management?
So there's specific equipment that you can utilize if the family wants it, and that piece of equipment is what it's talking about specifically.
Unicell, right?
It's
Omnicell.
What was that?
Omnicell? They have a medication and they lock it and you guys can prescribe it?
That's a different one. This one dispenses automatically.
Okay. So who would be dispensing that medication?
So there's a couple options, and that's all based on the level of care.
What are you going to provide?
So we will have our caregivers, and then we'll have med tech safe specialist.
Okay.
We also have a nurse on staff that oversees those things monthly on continuum of care. because some person might not need medication when they come in, and medication really needs to be closely monitored. You know, they might have just gotten out of the hospital, and then they can wean off that, so that's something we take very seriously.
So you're gonna have an RN care manager there?
Absolutely, and that's a state requirement.
That's full-time position?
What was that?
Full-time position?
That is a full-time position.
How about nutritionist?
How about nutrition?
Yes.
That is one thing we have to partner with the dietitian, another state requirement that tells us all of the meals that we need and the ingredients. We have looked at partnering with HelloFresh, and we can talk a little bit more about that. Originally, we started off as wanting to do independent, and then when we started hearing the specific needs of the community is when we changed to residential assisted living, and that's when I also went through the academy to learn everything about it. And so that's why you did see a lot of discrepancies on the website. It was transitioning, hearing back community feedback from independent to assisted.
Okay. I'm gonna give you a copy of this, you already have it. This is actually one of the pieces from your website, and you can go back over here. So I made a quick list. So I went through today, I'd already looked at the website before, but I went through today and made some notes that, I think it's on page 6, that members have a copy of it. Find my copy. First thing it mentioned was the medical management we talked about, and then the nutrition. In here, it also talks about home spa treatments, at-home hot spa treatments.
Yeah.
How is that going to be done?
Yeah, we'll have a hairdresser come in and be able to provide haircuts and things of that matter. And we're also looking at partnering with a massage therapist.
Okay. How about a state-of-the-art gymnasium that's in the building?
Where are you seeing that at?
It's in there.
Yeah, well, we do have exercise equipment and a physical therapist coming in, and that might be something that we do need to edit. The gym membership was one thing we were working on, and we still want to continue to work on. And there's a local gym that we've actually reached out to about that, and then also the basketball quarters.
Okay, so the state-of-the-art gym that's on your website is not going to happen. We're gonna do,
So, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not seeing the
I don't
state-of-the-art
either.
gym. I'm seeing the gym membership on page 1 of 8.
let me see here.
I mean, I think
At the
state-of-the-art
state-of-the-art
is a
gym.
vague description that can cover.
Yeah, if you look at page,
And I also believe that a lot of the reason you're not
Front
moving
page.
along farther
The
is
title
because
section.
either there's been no approval. So
Oh,
why?
Absolutely,
Says gym.
and that has been a challenge,
Yeah.
wanting to respect and get the approval and commitment from you
so
guys,
the
and
title of
also
the gym membership.
Okay. So we can question, because I thought I saw it someplace else, but we can question the gym. At least they're getting some exercise.
It's the front, it's right here. Maintain an active, healthy lifestyle, complement your membership to our state-of-the-art gym.
Well,
Okay.
all right, weekly cleaning and laundry service, how's that being provided?
that's our caregivers provide that. It's part of the caregivers' jobs.
So your
Make sure-
caregivers are
In
gonna,
your facility.
Yes, exactly.
so we won't send linens out?
No.
You don't send anything?
I
out?
mean, if there's a specialized thing, sometimes you need to go to a dry cleaner, we can arrange that, but our caregivers will provide that service.
Okay. Fully equipped business center.
So that is, we fully equipped, with printer, computer, so we can keep our seniors engaged. And so that's what that business center looks like. Also, we like a place for people to write letters, because that is still common. Sometimes you don't believe it, but it is common and something that the seniors value. So we have a specific space and library that they can do that with, books to learn and grow.
Okay. Number of books that you already have?
The number of books?
Yes. For your library?
Yeah, I think we have, I don't want to give you a wrong answer. Lots of books on psychology and things of that matter. We have about 20 books there right now. Again, we're just finishing some of the painting, so we need to bring some things in. And that's also, we want to hear back from our residents on what types of things they'd like to read.
Okay. Where are we at on the emergency call system for the building? Emergency call system in each room?
Yeah, so there are call buttons already on all of the doors, and then we're working on some different software. Sometimes they have watches that a senior can wear that if they fall, everyone's notified automatically. So there's a couple different things that move into that.
Security entries?
Yep, we already have the security cameras purchased, and we're placing them around the home for different areas to make sure everything's covered.
We have the punch lock, we having a key lock, or are they doing the punch lock for access to the doors?
The codes are pass lock and key lock, so they're both.
It's and or, right? It's either or?
Yeah.
Okay. Modern video games.
Yeah, so you know what, the Wii is really cool, and you can do Wii bowling, you can do Wii boxing, and some of this can be activities for the senior, so we're really excited about that type of thing.
Outdoor basketball court.
Yep, that's there and that's been there. It's a quarters, so there was actually 2 basketball hoops before, and there's quite a large area where they can play. Even if there's chair basketball, that can be something, and if you don't want to use it, it's just kind of nice to know it's there too.
Personalized room setup?
Yes, so we are having a projector that comes down, so we have a TV and a projector.
No, personalized room setup.
Room.
Oh, room.
The individual rooms.
Okay, the room setup. So we automatically supply the beds, the linens, everything of that matter. However, if they're wanting, of course, when you move in somewhere, you want to make it feel like home. So we will either provide that or allow them to change it to make it feel like home as well.
So in assisted living, they can't bring their own bed?
Well, typically in the assisted living facility, it's all set up, and then they take grandma and leave her there, and they never come back, right?
And if they want to specialize there, that would be provided as well when they move in.
Okay.
So you're gonna let them customize their own room, like if they want TVs and everything else on the wall and everything else like that?
Yes, absolutely, but we do provide, it comes in already ready for them.
So you're gonna have them
They
ready?
can move in that day, it's already ready for them. But of course, if they want some of those extras,
Personalized.
yeah,
Okay.
But TVs are gonna be in the common area, right?
yes, absolutely,
Okay. Cable hookups, all that stuff in the rooms?
absolutely.
How about this one? Upsized rooms with fireplaces and for premium rooms.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen the facility, but the rooms are actually massive, like really big. And so there are, one room has a specific fireplace, 2 rooms go directly to the outside patio areas, and so some of the rooms are premium. And those are perfect for couples, and also like we talked about last time, the father-son or mother-daughter, if they're in that same age group, or sisters.
So, before last week when we talked, I'm upset that Mr. Fleek is not present. But after conversation and then looking at the website, and still looking at the website today, there's still, in my opinion, some deception going on and false advertising or misrepresentation. And that's the things that I mentioned here. But then I also, somebody had already mentioned before that you guys have another business, and Social Sherwood, where you guys custom your own websites, you do your search engines, your lead generation. So this is your website that you guys built. Either that or you obtained the website and you guys are utilizing, right? It's your website,
Yeah.
correct? So anything that's on this website that isn't actually what we real. Like, we could have done it, like I said last week, we could have done it coming soon, or this is what we're going to do, or this is, instead of making the entrance video showing an art room and rooms with chairs and families and some things that don't exist. As a person on the board, I have an issue with somebody looking at a website and then from out of town, from Locust, and driving here to 901 and looking at the facility and not being representative of what it shows on the website. And I know that people change looks, and people, that board falls off of their house or whatever. But I think it's a blatant disregard, especially when it's your website, one of the many things that you guys do. And then being here once a month and then having people drop in to make visits, I don't know, especially for a startup, that you've never been involved in senior healthcare as far as managing.
That is incorrect, and I do just want to say so.
If you don't actually let me, I'm gonna actually disagree with you on this particular issue.
And
in
I do
spite,
too.
and in spite of recent allegations, you and I have not met before outside of these meetings, correct?
No.
Okay. And so, as far as the website goes, your numbers are on the website, correct? And I would assume that you would be able to, if somebody was interested in applying for a place or a room, they would be given a tour, being shown everything.
Absolutely.
In fact, with family members coming. This is not outside of the norm for businesses or for nursing home facilities. In fact, there's other nursing home facilities that I have personally been in, and in checking their website, there's a definitely disregard for what actually exists versus what is on the website. So this, in my opinion, is not really a representative of
your
any
website.
real issue. It's more along the lines of if you've given the opportunity for somebody to come in and actually view the facilities and make a conscious decision, an educated decision as to whether or not they want to use them. So I'm going to highly disagree with the issues with the website at this point.
And so are you partnering with A Place for Mom? Is that what this is?
We are not partnering with a place for mom. So there is such thing as like senior trafficking, and that has been.
Is that what's going on here?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. How are you affiliated then? How did you get on this A Place for Mom website that is featuring
Yeah,
41,000 plus properties across the United States of America?
that is a great question, and I will have to ask Brandon about it, because when we looked at placement providers, we started to look into that. We haven't done any business with
So are
them.
they a placement provider? Is that
They are,
what
A Place
their
for Mom is a
affiliation-
placement provider.
Okay.
Yeah, they have seniors interested.
So that's why the website looks like it does, but they do hold you to very strict standards for you to partner with them, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
So
And
I'm sorry.
One of the things that I wanted to point out is, well, first of all, and I'm sure, I don't know if you guys are familiar, assisted living, by that, and they usually only, and that's a 12-bed facility, they usually only have 3 cars there at once. They do have a So there's communities in over 3,000 homes, home care providers. They serve over 300,000. Is not a you can go onto Zillow to do that. You can go onto Zillow and see that unless somebody comes in and gets that property completely out, it is a family dwelling. So it will sit empty. The Courtyards in Claremore, Canoebrook, the Grove at Middletown, the Courtyard, Cedarhurst at Woodland, Green Tree Assisted Living. These assisted living facilities were nationally recognized as the best of 2024 senior living winners, and they're right next door to us. They really will hold these people to a high standard. And not only that, they've been featured in Newsweek and the Washington Post and Wall Street Journal, and I can, go on and on about that. But I'm thinking that maybe, and I get it, oh my gosh, however, there was a, what did you call it? What was this place here? Clean and Sober program, right in the middle of a school zone. Either it was illegal or they never got permission from a board members, because you cannot be in so many yards, blocks, whatever, if there's potential for drug use. And having to deal with picking up meth pipes and drugs and stuff like that, oh my gosh, and having to deal with the police all the time constantly being there, and the federal AP&P, that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But on behalf of them, I would encourage you to go look at some of these properties. It would raise the value. It really would raise your property value. And I don't want you to get upset with me. I want you to just consider this. It's not like they would be out wandering the streets. And I'm very familiar with senior living. The majority of the time, and I meant it when I said it, your grandma gets dropped off, papa gets dropped off, and nobody ever comes and visits them again. They get visited, or they don't even get visited, they get picked up for holidays, and things like that. So I would hope that you would consider that, because one of the things that Sarah also brought out, and I'm going totally against the mayor and the county attorney on this, but I really believe that in spite of the fact that there is a compact agreement, whatever, that you're going to be dealing with the Fair Housing Act, the Federal Fair Housing Act. And if I could say anything, and it was just me voting, I would not vote. I would not vote, because I know this is going to get legal. I mean, they're adamant, they don't want it. But when you know what the law says, and not only that, you have the Residential Assisted Living Act of the state of Oklahoma to back you up too. So I don't know. I wish I could just crawl out of here and not ever see any one of you again. I'm not kidding. I feel for all of you.
Any comments? Have you measured your hallways?
We what?
Have you measured your hallway?
Our hallway?
Yes.
Absolutely. We have an architect that does that, and they have to submit everything to the state for approval.
What is it right now? What is the width right now of the hallway?
I'm not an architect. Numbers are not my specialty in that sense, so that's why I have a power team around me.
Okay, because it has to be 5 feet. Okay, so who is currently, and you can say none of your business, but how long is your rent? How long is your lease, or how long are you signed up for right now?
So it's a contract for deed, so it's more than a lease. We are in contract to own the property.
And how is it binding?
How is it what?
How is it binding? So at what point can you get out, or at what point are you bound to the property? It's not a sale, right?
Well, it is a contract for deed, so it's more similar to a sale. It's a lease with option. So we're in contract for the life of, it's over 20 years of the mortgage.
Okay.
One more thing I'd like to say too, with the Fair Assisted Living Act, or the Residential Assisted Living Act, and I will email, I have these emails, my mind is gone, the Fair Housing Act and the Assisted Living Act of Oklahoma. You can see what the standards are that they are going to be bound to. And one of the things that, I felt so bad you guys constantly had to call the police on one discrepancy or another. They are bound through the Department of Health Services, I believe. So if you have a problem with them, you can call them and get them shut down. You know, if you've got issues with, but I can't even imagine that, you know, an older person would be doing what was going on here that should never have happened in the first place.
Well, and I think for clarification's sake, while I understand that was a halfway house, they legitimately did not have approval to run a halfway house. A resident, this particular facility or house is under a residential code, and we cannot even give a variance for a halfway house. It's a special exception for a halfway house. It's not even allowed. We can give a special exception for a community group home, which under Code 10-6-3 is a community-based group living use for elderly persons or persons with disability that allows independent living and that provides communal room and board, personal care, and habilitation services in a household-like environment. Community group homes for 8 or fewer persons are considered household living uses and are permitted wherever household living uses are allowed. They've already told us that the number of individuals they're going to have is 8. And the special exception that would be given is specific to elderly or individuals with disabilities. That would not allow them or anybody to come in after them, buy the property, turn it into a halfway house under any exception that we give.
And the only people that are gonna stop it is you, if that happened. Well, you guys gotta keep your eyes open. You know, you gotta turn these people in. Don't just call the police, call the state.
That was what the board was for.
That's what we thought our covenant was about.
Right, that's what we thought the board was for.
That we
It
can
was here
legally,
for us.
where now we can legally take action.
Well, it's like I said, I believe that this is going to turn into a legal issue because you've got that covenant, you've got the Fair Housing Act.
Because there's 28 houses in it.
Yeah.
People here that are against, and you're supposed to be our voice, and you're not listening to us.
So there's several,
You know, please don't say that. I am listening to you, but we've done, we've done.
You
don't have to say it. You show her.
Okay.
She doesn't vote for you.
So
Every time we were talking, she was up there making faces.
Rolling her eyes.
Hey guys, it's okay, hey guys.
I'm sorry, it's
But
disheartening.
there's just concerning things, the breaking of the ethics, the breaking of the ethics, the misrepresentation of the website, the business that's never done this before.
so I'm actually going to interject just a second here. First of all, if this board is not really in a position to determine if the covenant is a valid covenant.
Yes.
So that is the first issue. No, that's not how this works. The other issue is if we.
Then you can't violate it either, but then you can't violate it either if you're not sure of the term.
So what we.
Okay.
So what has happened, the lawyer, we have contacted a lawyer while this meeting is going on. The lawyer has stated that the covenant, the way it is extending covenant. Okay? I'm an administrator. I don't know none of us up here are lawyers.
Yeah.
Except for her.
Okay. So if you have input as far as law and you want to present that, otherwise we can make a recommendation and it may come up, if either side will have options to pursue after this meeting.
And you guys know that that's what's gonna happen here.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, even, we can sit here, like I said, we can all say no, but she's still going to go around that. She still has the Fair Housing Act and the Oklahoma Residential Assisted Living.
But we do not have control. We do not have control.
Actually, I think we need to just quit arguing because we're not gaining ground. As far as the covenant goes, the covenant actually runs with the property. There's no question about that.
Yes.
However, the covenant also cannot violate federal law or any law. So if Fair Housing Act does in fact apply, and so then it could be in violation of that covenant. Or that covenant could be in violation of that law and therefore wouldn't be a valid covenant.
And the other thing is that assisted living facility was built in 1970. That covenant contract was not signed until I believe 1971 of October, something like that.
It was 71 that,
Well, and you know, this is gonna end up being for an attorney
May I?
to help you guys.
may I interject?
Yes.
Again, I think we're chasing the wrong rabbit.
We are.
The rabbit that we need to be chasing is based on this covenant as it exists. Now, with that in place, you people in your authority can reject the request at this point. All right? Legal matter is over unless they want to do something with it. Now, nobody, I don't think, is saying that what they're trying to do is bad, it's stupid, it's incompetent, no, I don't, that's not the rabbit we're chasing. If you vote to reject the special request based on the information you have out of this covenant, that leaves the ball in their court. They can play that game wherever they want to play it, in any other location. If they choose to take some sort of legal action based on this fair housing thing, then so be it. If, on the other hand, you vote to approve this exception, then what that does is that throws the monkey on our back. Do we enter into litigation? And the only thing that that's going to do is make some lawyers rich.
And so we don't have no representation.
And you know, no, we don't want to go to litigation on this. I'm sure they don't want to go to litigation on this. It's all in your hands is what you do and what you can base your decision on confidently is what's in that covenant.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the special exception for the residential care facility as it's been asked.
If there would be stipulations, is that at this, or would there be something after this to have special limitations?
You make that in the motion, I believe. You have to make that, if that.
If you want to make
any
specific exceptions to the exception. For example, if they would move out, if it would change hands, that's just an example.
I'm going to make the motion
Without stipulation?
without stipulations as far as if it changes hands.
So repeat that for me again?
I'm going to make a motion to approve the special exception for the residential care facility.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Okay, we need to have a audible vote, please?
Kraft,
No?
Littlefield,
No.
Darnell? No. Brakefield,
Yes.
Barker?
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, we have disapproved the special exemption for the residential care facility. Do we need to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all for coming.